Hey, it's Mark Linear with your video thought for the day. All right, I'm talking about Black History Month this week, and I've got a really interesting guy I want to talk to you about today. This fella, first of all, he's white, not black, and yet is really an inspiring story, for me at least, and hopefully for you on Black History Month. Let me tell you about this fella. Now, this fella was born into a wealthy family in Hull, England. Hull was a port town on the northeast side of England, up near Scotland. And he was born, I think it was 1759, or just right before the 1760s. And he's born into a wealthy family, and he was a rich kid. A rich white kid in Hull. His dad dies when he's about 9, so he gets shipped off to live with an aunt in London, the big city. He reaches the age, back then it was young, when they went to college, and he, being wealthy, gets into St. John's at Cambridge University, one of the top colleges in the country. And he's a goof-off. He doesn't really study that hard. He's just kind of comes across to me, at least, as a spoiled little rich kid. And he's a kid of connections. So at the age of 21, he gets elected to Parliament and gets to serve in Parliament, where he continues to be a bit of a goof-off. Now, at this point in time, if you're keeping track, we're in about the 1780s. And in England, in the world in the 1780s, there were a number of ships. The British Navy was the top navy in the world. There were a number of ships that every year would sail down to the western coast of Africa, the Gulf of Guinea. And that's modern day countries like Ghana and Togo and Benin and Nigeria, all the way down into Cameroon. That part of Africa, the part that where hurricanes get started, over on that coast, okay, and then sweep across the Atlantic. These ships were coming down, and they were capturing and sometimes buying, because one African tribe would sell out another African tribe, but they were buying and capturing Africans, and they were hauling them as slaves to be sold in the West Indies and in the American colonies. Now, at this point in time, records indicate that somewhere between 35 and 50,000 a year are being taken from their homes in Africa and in slavery. And it was an economic necessity, or so it seemed. The economy had grown to where, whether it was a tobacco farm or a cotton farm, or even a sugar plantation, those were labor-intensive crops. They didn't have tractors. John Deere hadn't invented their stuff yet. So you needed manpower that could work under the heat of the day and the threat of a whip, because it is hard, back-breaking sweat work. Mosquitoes, the whole thing. And so slavery was viewed, not everybody loved slavery, but it was viewed as something that just seemed to be an economic necessity. So nobody thought that it could ever change. Now, you've got this goof-off rich white kid who's in Parliament at a young age, and he gets very depressed. His life, he realizes in his mid-20s, his life is kind of pointless. Now, he had known something of Christianity as a child, but had left it far behind in the wild days of college and as he grew into adulthood. But something happened to him on Easter morning in 1786 at the age of 27. It galvanized an experience he'd had from the year before. The year before, he'd gone to Europe, and he had read through the Greek New Testament with a buddy of his. And the scriptures began to come alive to him. And then on that Easter morning, his depression lifted in praise and thanksgiving as he understood the glories of God. And he turned his life around on a dime. The guy became a teetotaler. The guy became, he said that at first he was thinking about leaving Parliament. But his preacher, a guy by the name of John Newton, as in who wrote Amazing Grace, the slave trader, John Newton turned pastor. John Newton and William Pitt, the prime minister, were his buddies, ultimately a prime minister. And they said, wait, God's not calling you to leave Parliament. God's calling you to use Parliament to change the world. And so he stayed in Parliament. And he decided he had two main goals in life at that point. One was the abolition of slavery. The second was the reformation of morality. And so he applied himself diligently. He introduced 12 bills to gradually eliminate slavery in 1789. All of them went down the tubes. He introduced another anti-slavery bill in 1791. Nope, didn't pass. 92, didn't pass. 93, didn't pass. 97, didn't pass. 98, didn't pass. 99, didn't pass. 1804, didn't pass. 1805, didn't pass. Finally, in 1807, he gets a bill to pass that eliminates the ability to go to Africa and take a British ship and take slaves over and sell them. Slaves that are slaves aren't emancipated yet. That doesn't come until 3 days before he dies in 1833 in England. But this is a profound story of a man who, by the way, once he started trying to do this, he was beaten up on the street. He was live death threats against him. It was a horrendous situation, and it was not a good thing. Sorry, I've got the weed blower outside. You're hearing that. But on reformation of morals, this man gave 25% of his money to the poor. He introduced legislation and formed entities to help deal with the problems of chimney sweeps, getting all of the dirt that cut their lives short, helping widows, helping orphans. I mean, the guy was like incredible. He did all of this, by the way, with poor health. And I just look at Black History Month and I think about people, regardless of their skin color, who helped change the world because of their faith in God and understanding that. Now, I went way long today and I'm sorry, but this is an incredible story all of us need to know because it should inspire all of us, regardless of our health, regardless of the success, the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, umpteenth time, to use where we are in this life to help God's love be shown to everybody, regardless of skin color, economics, education, socioeconomic status, anything. God loves us all, starting with you and me. Let's change the world. It's your video thought for the day.